She walked past them like she couldn't hear the hate, but someone else did. Ava Morgan's limp was clear. Her prosthetic leg showed under her worn jeans as she moved past the construction site. The foreman's voice cut through the noise like, "A bad joke. Somebody call the VA. Looks like we've got a stray." Laughter followed. Another worker shouted, "Wrong turn, sweetheart. Welfare office is the other way." Ava kept walking. Jaw tight. Grip firm on the marine cap in. Her hand, she didn't respond. They didn't know she'd once dragged bleeding soldiers through gunfire. Her limp wasn't fake. It was carved by fire and war. 15 minutes later, everything on that site stopped. Engines went quiet. Tools dropped. 3 black SUVs pulled up and blocked the gate. Then they saw them. 7 men stepped out, moving like one. Navy SEALs. Faces blank, boots sure. And when they walked toward Ava Morgan, the same people who laughed before suddenly forgot how to smile. Ava hadn't come home to any parades or flags. No speeches, no cheers. Just a quiet apartment behind a strip mall in East Houston. It had 2 rooms, a small balcony, and neighbors who didn't ask questions. That's why she liked it. Nobody expected her to talk about the past. Every Tuesday, she packed her olive duffel bag. Inside were her pills, a notebook full of reminders, and a sun-faded marine cap. She didn't wear it anymore, but she never left without it. That cap had been through 2 tours, 3 battles. It was the last piece of her old life. She had lost her leg in Fallujah after an IED explosion. Now she wore a high-tech prosthetic, not fancy, just clean and strong. Every step made a soft clicking sound. Some thought it was odd. To Ava, it was music. It meant she was still here. People in her neighborhood didn't really know her. Polite. Quiet lady, they'd say. The kids stared sometimes, asked rude questions when they thought she couldn't hear. She didn't answer. She didn't need to explain. But every night, the war came back. Mortar blasts, screams on the radio. Blood on her hands. The walls were quiet, but her memories weren't. She'd sit by the window and watch headlights pass. Like searchlights on a base, she never complained. She never talked about what she lost, because Ava didn't wear pain for sympathy. She wore it like armor. The heat in Houston that day was brutal. Sun beat down on unfinished walls and loose cinder. Blocks, hammers pounded. Sparks flew from welding torches. Trucks came and went. Ava moved along the sidewalk beside the chaos. Slow, steady steps. That soft click following every footfall. She had walked past this site before, dozens of times. Just blocks from the VA clinic. Faded green t-shirt. Tanned skin, worn out jeans. She looked like anyone else on a mission, until someone decided to say something. "Hey," a voice shouted. "Welfare's the other way." Laughter burst out. Ava didn't flinch. Up on the second-floor scaffold, 3 workers in neon vests leaned over the edge. One mocked her limp. Another faked the fall. "Bet she got that leg at Goodwill," someone sneered. The ringleader stood at ground level, Rick Tanner, the foreman. Red-faced, arms crossed, ball cap soaked in sweat. He looked at Ava and saw not a soldier, but a setup for a cruel joke. "Someone call the VA," he shouted louder. One of their wind-up toys got loose. More laughter. Ava tightened her grip. On the cap, still didn't break stride. Still didn't react. She had survived worse. This was just noise. A teenage girl nearby was already filming. "This is going viral," she whispered, grinning. "Wait till TikTok sees the RoboCop lady." No one told her to stop. Even the assistant manager did nothing. Just folded his arms and looked away. But Ava didn't respond. Her silence wasn't weakness, it was strength. Behind that quiet, there were years of training, pain, and control. Rick Tanner kept going. "Bet she never even saw combat," he said. "Probably fell off a barstool in San Diego." More laughter, more phones raised. Ava didn't turn. Instead, she slipped her hand under her shirt and touched her dog tags. Still warm from her skin, her name, her blood type, her branch. It reminded her, you mattered. The noise faded as she walked on, boots covered in dust, sweat on her neck. But her pace didn't change. Then she saw it, half a block away. A black SUV, tinted windows. Engine running. Someone inside was watching. She didn't know it yet, but justice was already in motion. The man in the SUV wasn't just anyone. Logan Beck sat behind the wheel, arms resting on the steering. His eyes didn't blink as he watched Ava disappear down the sidewalk. His jaw tightened. He remembered her. Not just today, but from years ago. In the middle of chaos, smoke and bullets, he reached for his sleeve and pulled it up just a bit. On his forearm was a faded tattoo, a trident wrapped in an eagle and anchor. The mark of a Navy SEAL, earned, not bought. His mind raced back to Fallujah. Broken streets, dust clouds, blood. His team had been trapped behind a wrecked convoy. 3 civilians bleeding out. Snipers above. And through it all, Ava Morgan ran. Not once, not twice. 3 times. Each time she came back with someone. The last trip cost her a leg. She never asked for thanks. Never stood on a stage. Logan did. He got medals. He wore the uniform at ceremonies. But deep down, he always knew why he had lived. Because of her. And now? He watched the same woman mocked in daylight. Treated like a joke. He picked up his phone. No hesitation. No questions. "It's Beck," he said. "Send the convoy, now." He ended the call and slid the phone back into the dash tray. This wasn't just about Ava anymore. It was about every silent act of courage. No one had ever clapped for. Ava Morgan was born in a small Kentucky town where dirt roads outnumbered paved ones. Her family farmed livestock and soybeans. Just enough to survive. She grew up with early mornings and hands that knew how to fix anything. By 18, she knew she needed more. The farm was fading. Her parents were aging. She wanted a life with purpose. So she walked into a Marine Corps recruiting office with nothing but a diploma and a backbone made of steel. Boot camp wasn't a shock. She had carried hay bales since childhood. She was tough, focused, and protective. By her second deployment, she had become someone others followed without question. Then came Fallujah. Her unit was securing a convoy delivering medical aid through crowded streets. The first blast flipped the lead vehicle. Metal, flames, screams. She didn't wait. Ava ran into the smoke, dragged a corpsman out. Then a civilian. And went back again. The third time, she reached under the wreckage for a Marine. That's when the second IED hit. She woke up in Germany. Leg gone, the Silver Star, Purple Heart, the respect of everyone in her unit. But medals can't quiet the loneliness that comes next. Back home, she faced a new kind of war. Job interviews ended with forced smiles and "we'll call you." One manager stared at her leg and said, "This job needs long hours on your feet." They didn't see the courage, just the risk. And so Ava faded into a quiet life, not bitter, just tired. Even going to the store meant being ready for stares and whispers. Back at the job site, the heat was rising, sweat dripped. Dust floated. In the air, some workers had gone back to swinging hammers. But most kept glancing toward the street. They expected her to come back. To shout, to fight. She didn't, but someone else did. A deep rumble echoed down the block, not a truck. Something, heavier, sharper. 3 black SUVs turned the corner. They moved like soldiers, clean, straight, no flashing lights. No sirens. Just silent. Power. They pulled up information and stopped at the gate. Not a single word. Doors opened in sync. 7 men stepped out. No full combat gear, but their presence was loud. Black tactical pants, tight dark shirts, heavy boots. Some wore sunglasses. Most DIDN single quotes D. No smiles. No small talk. They scanned the site the way soldiers clear a building. Measured. Focused. Even the noisiest workers fell silent. Rick Tanner stood frozen. Sweat darkened his shirt. He had no clue if this was an inspection, a government drill, or something much worse. One man stepped forward, older, calm, Logan Beck. His hair was trimmed short. Arms inked. His walk was easy, but his eyes were sharp. He didn't look at the machines or the mess. He looked at Ava, now nearly 2 blocks away, and the other 6 men followed him without needing a single word. They didn't have to explain why they were there. Everyone already knew, and just like that, the laughter disappeared. Only the sound left was the wind. And the steady crunch of boots on gravel. The boots stopped just a few feet from the foreman. Rick Tanner looked up at Logan Beck. The same man who had once been pulled from flames by Ava Morgan now stood calm, eyes locked on him, Rick tried to hold his ground, clipboard hanging in one hand, mouth open like he wanted to say something, but COULDN single quotes T. Logan spoke first. Quiet, firm. Who humiliated Sergeant Ava Morgan? Rick blinked. What? He stuttered, voice shaky. Man, it was just a joke. Logan didn't blink. A joke? He turned his body slightly so more people could hear. His tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. She served 2 combat tours in Iraq. In Fallujah, she carried 3 wounded soldiers, including me, out of a burning Humvee. She lost her leg doing it. The silence was loud. A few workers looked down. Others stared in shock. Some finally understood just how badly this had gone. Before Rick could say anything, another SEAL stepped forward, younger, sharp eyes. Buzz cut. He held up a phone. We recorded everything. From the sidewalk, every word, every laugh, every insult. Rick's face turned pale. The SEAL continued, mocking a decorated veteran on public property while on the clock. Your company's gonna love that. Then Logan stepped in closer. She never wanted attention, never asked for applause. But while my team was bleeding out and enemy fire was closing in, she ran into the kill zone 3 times. He paused. Men like you would have been crying for help. Logan's eyes narrowed. And you think she's a joke? A murmur rippled through the growing crowd. People had gathered now. Some pulled out phones, but not to laugh. This time, it was different. Now they were filming with respect. Logan turned to the crowd. You laughed at a woman who gave more for this country than most people ever will. His voice was sharp. That ends now. Rick opened his mouth maybe to say sorry, but Logan didn't wait. He turned his back, a clear signal. Behind him the other SEALs fell into formation. No words. Just unity. Ava, still walking down the block, heard the steps behind her, not rushed. Not angry, just steady. She turned and froze. Logan was coming toward her. Not fast. Not slow. Just sure. Behind him, the team followed. The entire construction site stood still. No hammering. No shouting. Only wind and the soft sound of boots. Logan stopped just a few feet away. His eyes met hers. He didn't speak for a moment. He just looked at her the way few had in years, with understanding. No pity. No curiosity. Just respect. Then he stood at attention. His voice was clear, even, and quiet. Permission to honor you, ma'am. Ava blinked before she could speak. Logan raised his hand in a sharp, perfect salute. Behind him, every SEAL followed, their posture stiff, arms locked. No movement. It was a salute reserved for heroes. Ava's throat tightened. Her right hand moved on instinct. She returned the salute, not out of pride, but from years of training. Logan slowly lowered his arm. Then he reached into a pocket and pulled out a small round coin. Silver edged, clean, a trident engraved in the center. He stepped forward and placed it in her hand. This is a Brotherhood coin. Navy SEAL issue. You don't buy it. You don't request it. You earn it. He gently closed her fingers around it. You earned it in Fallujah. But you never got it, because you were too busy saving lives. Ava stared at the coin, then back at him. Her lips trembled, but no words came. People watching didn't say a thing. Even the teenager who had filmed her earlier now lowered her phone, eyes full of something like regret. Ava stood taller than she had in years, not because of pride, but because for once she didn't feel invisible. She was seen. Fully seen. And more than that, she was honored. The video of that moment spread fast. By nightfall, clips of Logan Beck's words, "She dragged me out of a burning Humvee," were all over social media. News stations picked it up. Veteran groups shared it with the caption, "This is how you treat a hero." The next morning, the construction company's inbox was full. Hundreds of messages, calls. One clear message from the public: make it right. Within 24 hours, the company released a formal apology. It was posted on their website and every social page they had. The message was bold and direct. "We deeply regret the disrespect shown towards Sergeant Ava Morgan. Her courage and service deserve honor, not mockery. We are committed to turning our work sites into places of respect." It also confirmed that Rick Tanner, the foreman, had been removed from the site. He was reassigned to off-site duties permanently. But something more important followed. A week later, Ava received a letter from Roosevelt High School, just a few blocks from the construction site. The principal invited her to speak during Veterans Appreciation Week. Ava hesitated. She had never seen herself as a speaker, never stood in front of a crowd. But something about this felt different. They weren't asking her to show medals. They wanted her truth. She said yes. That Friday morning, Ava stepped onto the stage in the school's main auditorium. Her blouse was clean and neatly pressed. On her head, the Marine cap she hadn't worn in more than 10 years. Her prosthetic tapped softly on the floor as she walked to the microphone. She didn't talk about battles. She didn't show photos. She simply said, "Scars don't mean you're broken. They mean you survived something that tried to break you, and you kept walking." The room stayed silent for a moment. Then the students rose. Applause filled the space. Some wiped away tears. The teachers clapped the longest. Back at the construction site, things didn't just change, they transformed. A week later, the company installed something small but powerful. A brick set into the ground at the front gate, surrounded by steel and fresh concrete. On it, a message engraved in simple, clean letters. SGT Ava Morgan. Built on respect. It wasn't flashy. It didn't need guards or spotlights. But workers passed by it every day. Some paused to stare. A few placed their hands on it before clocking in. The brick became more than a tribute. It became a reminder, a lesson. Set in stone, the effect rippled out. Slow at first, then faster. Conversations began. On site. Then across other branches of the company. Workers who once rolled their eyes at diversity training now signed up for something called respect in the trades. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Because now they understood what disrespect had cost them. The first class was quiet. Mostly older men with calloused hands and hard hats. But when a veteran named Miguel shared how his brother, also a Marine with a prosthetic, had been denied work 4 times, something changed in the room. By the 3rd session, people started to listen. By the 5th, they began to speak. Some admitted regrets. Times they stayed quiet. Times they laughed along instead of speaking up. Meanwhile, Ava kept a low profile. She hadn't asked to become a symbol, but life has a way of placing symbols where scars once lived. One afternoon, Ava sat at a small cafe 2 blocks from the site. Just coffee, some shade, and a quiet table. A young boy walked up, maybe 7, maybe 8, freckles, bowl cut, a red hoodie, and a prosthetic arm, just visible under the sleeve. He didn't say anything at first. Just stood there staring. "My mom says I'm like you," he finally said. Ava looked up, surprised. "She says I don't need 2 arms to be strong." He paused. "She says maybe I can be a hero too." Ava felt her heart shift. She leaned forward. Voice low but full of weight. "You already are," she told him. "Every day you get up and keep going, you're a hero." His smile wasn't shy or polite. It was real, bright, full of life. He ran back to his mom, who stood nearby with tears in her eyes, and just like that, another spark was lit. Word of that moment at the cafe spread fast, not through headlines this time, but through whispers, shares, and hearts. People began showing up at the brick. Veterans, nurses, amputees, some in uniform, some in silence. They came to touch the ground, to feel seen. Students visited on school field trips. Teachers made lesson plans about service and sacrifice. Families brought flowers. The company took it even further. They expanded the Respect in the Trades program across all their regional sites. New signs went up. New conversations began. And for the first time, construction sites across the state weren't just about concrete and steel. They were about people. Dignity became part of the blueprint. And all of it started with one moment. One woman who didn't stop walking. One brick. 6 months after that confrontation, Ava stood backstage in Washington, D.C. The National Veterans Conference had invited her to speak. She never imagined something like this. She wasn't famous. She wasn't a politician. No book deals. No speeches under her belt. But she had something better. Truth. Not the kind that shouts. The kind that lasts. She stepped onto the stage. The lights dimmed. Rows of people watched. Soldiers, veterans, families, officials. In the front row, she saw 2 familiar faces. Logan Beck sat in full dress uniform. Arms folded respectfully. Next to him, the young boy from the cafe. The one with the prosthetic arm. He wore a little Marine Corps jacket, homemade, stitched with care. In his hand, he held something shiny. A challenge coin. The one Ava had given him when they met again. Weeks later. Ava took the podium. The light caught the edge of her prosthetic. She didn't hide it. Never again. She took a breath, then spoke. I used to think honor came from medals, she said. From rank, from the way someone salutes you. But I've learned something else. The room was completely silent. Honor isn't about how many limbs you have or how straight you stand. It's about how you face the storm, even when everything around you tells you to quit. Not a cough, not a shuffle. Just breath held still, she continued. Some of us come home whole. Some of us don't. Some scars you can see. Others you can't. But every single one matters. She looked directly at the boy. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks with a limp. Sometimes it wears a red hoodie. And still, it holds. Its head high. The boy smiled. Eyes wide. The first applause came soft. A few claps. Then more. Then the entire auditorium stood. A standing ovation that thundered through the hall. It lasted over 2 minutes. But Ava didn't step back to soak it in. She stepped back to share it. For the first time in years. She didn't walk alone. She stood with thousands. And deep in her chest, something returned she hadn't felt since the war. Pride. Real pride. Not from medals. Not from ceremonies. But from finally being seen. The brick back in Houston became more than just a brick. It became a destination. People came from miles away. Some on motorcycles with old patches on their jackets. Others with walking sticks and tired knees. They touched the name carved into the stone. Some knelt. Some cried. For many, it was the first time their own pain was acknowledged, out in the open, not hidden, not ignored. The community changed. They started asking new questions. Not just, what happened? But what can we fix? Who else needs to be seen? What started as a cruel joke on a hot afternoon turned into something far bigger. Not just a moment. A movement. It began online with a simple post from the teenager who once mocked Ava. She uploaded a new video, this time with a caption that read, "Let respect be louder than laughter." It caught fire. Veterans, nurses, firefighters, amputees, cancer survivors. They began sharing their stories, not because they were broken, but because they had survived. Each post carried the same message. I'm still here. I'm still standing. Because my scars didn't end me, they built me. That phrase became a symbol. People started printing it on shirts, posters, murals. Classrooms wrote it on whiteboards. Counselors used it in sessions. In small towns and cities. Ava's story wasn't just remembered, it was taught. At the end of her speech in D.C., Ava gave her final words to the crowd. Scars are not shame, she said. They're proof you faced the fire and walked through it. They mean you made it out. The crowd stood again. Not for applause, for the truth. They weren't clapping for a speech. They were clapping for everything she stood for. A woman who had been mocked, overlooked, doubted, and still stood tall, without bitterness. Ava Morgan had never asked to become a symbol. But now, she was a mirror. A reminder of what strength really looks like. Sometimes it limps. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes it just walks past the noise, holding a cap in one hand, and keeps going. What happened that day in Houston wasn't just about Ava. It was about us. How we treat those who already gave more than enough. How we respond when cruelty is louder than kindness. The brick at that job site? It didn't just mark an entrance. It marked a shift. A shift in how we see each other. And in the weeks that followed, more bricks like it were placed at other work sites, schools, hospitals. Each one with a name. Each one with a story. And all of them started with one moment. A woman walking past laughter and refusing to flinch. So let me ask you, have you ever seen someone mocked for being different? Did you wish you had spoken up? Because maybe, just maybe, you are the one who can make that difference next time. What does honor look like in your neighborhood? Let us know in the comments. Tell us about the person in your life who stood tall when no one was watching. If Ava's story moved you, share it. Like it. Tell someone. Because sometimes, the smallest gestures, a salute, a handshake, or even a brick in the ground, can rebuild more than walls. They can rebuild us. Thanks for watching Taqnix. We'll see you in the next story, where silence speaks, scars shine, and respect echoes louder than hate.